What is the most important VCT match ever played? In my opinion, it's not from any grand finals, not from any Masters or Champions events, hell, not even any playoff matches. Despite that, no match even comes close in terms of the butterfly effect this seemingly normal best of 3 regular season series would come to have. If a different conclusion was reached that day, VCT history would not be what we know of today. However, to explain properly, we need some context. Pre-franchising Evil Geniuses was not an enviable position. Their results during 2021 to 2022 was, for a lack of a better term, pretty awful. They failed to crack top 5 in most of the A-tier tournaments that they entered, getting outclassed by the other NA teams. By the time 2023 came around, Valorant esports would shift its open bracket format to a franchised one, which restricted which team would even be able to play on the tier 1 level. Luckily for EG, the franchising system picked teams by their marketability and not by their prior achievements. As such, EG was one of the 5 NA teams picked to participate in the inaugural VCT franchising season. However, it was clear that Evil Geniuses stood out like a sore thumb from the other NA teams. Other organizations who used to be in the same boat as EG, that is, having very middling results pre-franchising like NRG and Sentinels to a certain extent, poached world-class talent as part of their 2023 roster. Meanwhile, EG decided to not sign any big names into their 2023 roster, choosing relatively smaller players instead. Evil Geniuses failed to make a particularly strong impression at the start of the 2023 VCT season in lock-in, winning against a weak Team Heretics before losing 2-0 to Talon. By the time the regular season arrived, they ended the first half at an abysmal 1 win and 4 losses, the second worst performing team. With EG coach Porter's job on the line if she failed to improve results, she turned to a nuclear option. Or rather, a demonic one.
Oh my gosh! With stars at least a Rico. Oh my gosh! Shot by Demon 1!
It's very difficult to understate the sheer impact Demon 1 had on EG. His unique robotic aim, insane mechanics, and just ability to lock onto the heads of his enemies was something that the VCT world hadn't seen for a long time. If you were a casual viewer and didn't know the placing of the teams and you saw Demon 1, you'd assume he was on one of the best NA teams and not on the bum team that was regular season Evil Geniuses. He didn't immediately pop off though, as he was still finding his groove during the first 3 games, with EG getting 13-0'd by Loud in one map. However, he locked in afterwards. He was one of, if not the biggest reason why EG was able to find more wins during their regular season. Despite the successes, however, EG still ended the regular season at 4 wins and 5 losses. This placed them right outside the top 6 required for playoffs. Since Evil Geniuses played all of their regular season matches, they could no longer qualify on their own. However, that didn't mean that they were entirely out of contention. Luckily for EG, there was one team left whose playoffs fate hadn't been decided yet. That team was 100 Thieves, a struggling NA team who was initially thought to be one of the better teams but was somewhat underperforming. Despite finishing the last week of regular season play as the 4th seed, they still had 1 more game left to play, meaning that if they were to lose their last game, they could tumble all the way down to 7th to 8th place and out of playoffs. In other words, 100 Thieves needs to win their last match to advance to playoffs. If 100 Thieves loses, Evil Geniuses becomes the 6th seed and qualifies for playoffs instead. Luckily for 100 Thieves and unluckily for EG, 100 Thieves' opponents for their last game was against the now 2nd worst team in the league, Brazilian org MIBR. MIBR themselves were already out of playoff contention, which meant that this game didn't really have any real stakes for them. As if things couldn't get easier for 100 Thieves, MIBR was forced to play with their 6-man and assistant coach Chosen due to player Heat being benched for personal issues. Despite 100 Thieves not playing to their fullest this season, they were still considered the better team by far when compared to MIBR, especially with the latter's assistant coach subbing in. The players of EG had become MIBR's biggest fan overnight, but deep down, they knew the odds were heavily stacked against them.
Obviously, we hope to make playoffs if MIBR wins. They're just not winning. It's not happening.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Literally, Jesus is looking upon me if fucking they win.
But just because MIBR had nothing on the line, didn't mean that they were just going to roll over and accept their beating. Somehow, the bottom of the pack MIBR was giving 100 Thieves a run for their money in the first map of Fracture. In fact, MIBR looked like the unexpected dark horse to bet on because they ended up taking the first map pretty convincingly. The EG players who were watching turned from hopeless to hopeful. This looked to be even more true heading into the second map of Pearl, where MIBR would find themselves at series point by the second half. But after a miraculous 8-round comeback by 100 Thieves at 12-6, and with Cryo possibly pulling off one of the best aces in VCT history yet to close it out, 100 Thieves was still in the fight. But apparently so was MIBR, as they still ended map 3 of Lotus at 7-5 by the first half. Little by little, MIBR somehow found themselves at match point yet again. However, as if the scriptwriters got lazy, 100 Thieves would seemingly also mount a comeback yet again. On round 20, with the score at 12-7, MIBR player Mariza's lurk on A side draws 4 players of 100 Thieves directly to him. Despite 100 Thieves successfully knocking MIBR's lurker out of contention early, they had given C side completely to MIBR. Now, it was all down to the retake. Cryo manages to punish a player on MIBR for pushing, leading to a 3v5. With precious time ticking down, 100 Thieves knew they needed to push onto side now. Sensing the imminent push, the remaining MIBR players rotate to Waterfall to play the post plant instead. All of the MIBR players except for Chosen. Amidst the chaos, Chosen was ratting in a corner of the site. Assuming site to be clear, 100 Thieves floods in, giving Chosen an opening who after this game will never get another kill like this for the rest of his life.
Try tonight! No way! Off of it all! He's the hero in this scenario! And 100 Thieves have been denied! Stick and Chosen spraying! Try tonight! Ah! He's the hero! Ah! Thieves! Are you fucking kidding me?
Wait, they don't know. Shoot the fucking gun! It's calm! Yes! We're going! Let's go! We're playoff now, motherfucker!
Based on the reactions of the parties involved, you could tell which was which. For 100 Thieves, it was the ultimate embarrassment. For MIBR, it was to show that they were a team not to be underestimated. And for Evil Geniuses, pure elation. Sensing the fact that they had made it to playoffs by the absolute skin of their teeth, EG knew that they could not let this opportunity slip. During the playoffs, Evil Geniuses held their own against a dominant NRG squad 2-1 before decimating C9 in the upper semis, securing a top 3 finish and thus qualifying for Masters Tokyo and Champions LA. This qualification will ultimately give EG the chance to shock the world yet again by finishing second at Masters Tokyo to winning the most prestigious tournament of the year, Champions, a few months later. This match sits amongst the annals of Valorant esports' greatest what-ifs. Arguably, no other game of Valorant comes close to the domino effects of that game. If EG failed to make the playoffs, would they have emerged from the LCQ against a fiery crew? And even if they had, with Champions being their first international event, would they have the guts and mentality to win it all? And don't even get me started on seeding. There are simply too many variables at play to theorycraft an ideal scenario. At the end of the day, it's impossible to know what would have happened to EG and the greater Valorant landscape if 100 Thieves won that day. All we have is this current timeline, where Evil Geniuses won Champions 2023. What transpired after Champions 2023 is probably just as important for the greater Valorant esports timeline. Of course, as the winning team, the EG players would become vastly sought after players in other Americas team. With the Evil Geniuses organization going through some financial issues, they were unable to retain most of their players, leading to other Americas team poaching them. Boostio would go to 100 Thieves, Ethan and Demon 1 would go to NRG, and Com would go on to Left. Each of the transferred players would go on to influence the teams they went to in their own right, with Boostio leading 100 Thieves to their first LAN after Champions 2022, Com being an integral part of Leviathan, and NRG, let's just not talk about it. It may seem like I'm making it look like Demon 1 was the only one that carried EG all the way to the top, when that can't be further from the truth. Sure, he was EG's ace in the hole, but everybody on that team significantly upgraded by the time playoffs started. Jorgomo went from looking like a pretty mid-race player to straight up diffing the likes of Jing and something. Ethan was looking like ISO speed with his flashes, Boostio made a lot better calls at the IGL, and Calm was still lurking. In relation to EG, would these players be just as sought after during the 2024 season if they failed to make playoffs? I'm gonna take a wild guess and assume not. The 2023 EG team would have probably been written off as a team with potential but with no achievements to show off. I also might be overestimating the impact this match had, because it seems as if I'm discrediting the insane amount of matches they played afterwards to get to Champions 2023 in the first place. I'm framing it as if making playoffs equals them winning the whole VCT season. But here's the thing. It was because of this match that gave EG another chance to play in the first place, to prove themselves. They threw away their initial opportunity after their shoddy regular season, but because of MIBR versus 100 Thieves, they were given another shot, and they made it count. Also, if we really want to get into nerd territory, because technically it wasn't solely that knife kill that won MIBR that game, because that's discounting a whole lot of other host of factors, and yeah, sure, you're probably right, but that's way more boring than a knife kill. In short, 100 Thieves versus MIBR is one of the biggest, and dare I say it, if not the biggest reason why Evo Geniuses was able to lift the Champions Trophy, which will go on to influence the 2024 VCT season afterwards. If that isn't changing VCT history, I don't know what is. Also, the fact that 100 Thieves lost to the second worst team while the latter had their assistant coach playing just wraps the whole thing up pretty nicely in my opinion. Thanks for watching.